Hey everyone, welcome to a deep dive into ADHD and emotional regulation.
Okay.
You've sent over some really interesting research and articles, and
Right.
I'm especially curious about how this plays out in everyday life, not just the clinical definitions.
Well, and what's so fascinating about this is that,
Okay, yeah.
we often focus on that kind of like, fidgety ADHD stereotype.
Right.
But the emotional side is huge.
Okay.
It's like the iceberg beneath the surface.
Exactly. Like we see the tip of the iceberg,
Yeah.
maybe someone gets distracted easily, but underneath, there's this whole world of emotional intensity that I think often gets overlooked. And your research backs that up, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Studies show that a significant number of people with ADHD
Hmm.
have difficulty regulating their emotions.
Okay.
We're talking 30 to 70% of adults and roughly 25 to 45% of children.
Wow.
So this is not a niche thing. This is significant.
Those numbers are way higher than I think most people realize.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's connect the dots for our listener.
All right.
You mentioned focusing in a busy classroom.
Right.
Can you give us a real-life example of how ADHD might make that harder?
Yeah, so imagine you're sitting in class. You're trying to focus on the teacher, but every little sound, every visual distraction, even your own thoughts
Right.
feel super amplified.
Yeah.
It's like trying to hear a whisper at a rock concert,
Yeah.
but it's inside your own head.
Oh my gosh, I can
Yeah.
only imagine.
Right.
And then you mentioned in your notes that you struggled with focusing during long lectures,
Right.
which I totally get. That
Yeah.
must have been incredibly frustrating.
Oh, yeah.
So is that where the emotional regulation part comes in?
Exactly. So that overwhelming feeling can lead to frustration, anger, even shutting down completely.
Right.
And because the part of the brain responsible for putting on the brakes, the prefrontal cortex,
Okay.
isn't as active in people with ADHD,
Right.
it's harder to just calm down like someone else might.
Yeah.
It's like having a faulty brake pedal when you need it most.
It's not just willpower or choosing to be calm. Right.
There's a real biological reason why it feels so much harder.
Yeah.
And this is where understanding emotional regulation becomes crucial.
Right.
Like, it's not just about suppressing emotions, is it?
Exactly. It's about learning to understand, manage, and express your emotions in a healthy way.
Okay,
It's about having these skills to navigate the emotional ups and downs
got it.
without being totally overwhelmed.
Okay, and just to be clear, we're not just talking about, occasional bad moods here.
Right.
What does emotional dysregulation actually look like day to day?
So it can manifest in many ways,
Hmm.
but a common one is experiencing those emotions more intensely than other people.
Okay.
So little things might trigger huge emotional responses, almost like the volume dial is turned way up.
Like spilling your coffee could feel catastrophic?
Yes, or someone making a casual comment could feel like a personal attack.
Wow.
And remember that impulsivity we talked about?
Yeah.
That plays a role too.
Okay.
It's not just about acting without thinking, but also reacting emotionally without a moment to pause. This reminds me of something that Billy Roberts, a therapist specializing in ADHD, once said.
Okay.
He said that ADHD and emotional dysregulation are two sides of the same coin.
Hmm.
And I think that really highlights how intertwined they are. So
Right.
we've established that ADHD can make emotional regulation feel like an uphill battle.
Yeah.
But here's the good news. It doesn't have to be a losing battle.
Okay.
There are tools and strategies to help you climb that hill and even enjoy the view from the top.
Right.
Let's
Do it.
dig into those, shall we?
Yeah. It's like you're trying to climb this mountain, and
Right.
some days it feels like you're barely making any progress. But the important thing is that you've got the right gear
Okay.
and a good plan.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So what's in our emotional regulation toolkit? What kind of gear do we need for this climb?
So one powerful tool we have is cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT.
Okay, I've heard that term thrown around a lot.
Right.
What exactly is CBT and how can it help with emotional regulation?
So imagine your brain is like a computer
Okay.
running outdated software.
Okay.
CBT is like updating that software
Okay.
to help you process emotions and react in healthier ways.
So instead of just reacting automatically like an old computer program running the same loop, CBT helps you hit pause and choose a different response.
Exactly. It helps you identify those automatic negative thoughts, like when you spilled your coffee and thought, this always happens to me, I'm such a mess.
Oh, yeah.
And reframe them into something more balanced.
So instead of that internal spiral of doom,
Right.
CBT gives you the tools to be like, okay, spilled coffee, it happens. Let's clean it up and move on.
Exactly.
It's like training your brain to be more resilient.
Yeah.
What else can we add to our toolkit?
Mindfulness is another great tool,
Okay.
and it pairs well with CBT.
Okay. I have to admit, I always thought mindfulness was about like chanting and sitting in lotus pose, which honestly sounds nice, but not super realistic in my daily life.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Mindfulness is often misunderstood. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's really about learning to pay attention to your emotions in the present moment without judgment.
Okay.
Like noticing those physical sensations of frustration or anger bubbling up,
Right.
but not getting swept away by them.
So it's like creating a little space between you and the feeling, so you're not just reacting impulsively.
Exactly.
Are there any like simple ways to incorporate that into a busy day?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Even taking like 5 minutes to focus on your breath can be incredibly grounding.
Okay.
Um, there are also great apps with guided meditations for all kinds of situations, stress, frustration, even dealing with difficult people.
That's awesome. A mindfulness app. I can get behind that.
Right.
Okay, so we've got our mental tools covered with CBT and mindfulness.
Yeah.
What about the physical stuff? Does our lifestyle impact emotional regulation too?
Absolutely. What we eat, how we move, even how much sleep we get, it all plays a role.
So it's that whole mind-body connection again. What kind of things should we be paying attention to?
Well, a balanced diet is key. There's growing research on the connection between gut health and mental health.
Interesting.
And some studies suggest that omega-3 fatty acids found in fatty fish like salmon can actually improve mood and focus.
Okay, salmon. It is. I'm always up for trying new things, especially if it means I might feel less emotionally all over the place. What about exercise?
So exercise is like a magic pill for emotional regulation.
Okay.
It releases endorphins, those feel-good chemicals,
Right.
and helps burn off some of that excess energy and stress
Uh-huh.
that can lead to emotional outbursts.
Right.
Even a short walk can make a big difference.
Right. Sometimes I just need to get out of my own head and move my body.
Exactly.
Okay. Last but not least, sleep. I have a feeling I know where this is going.
Sleep is crucial for everyone, but especially for folks with ADHD.
Okay.
When we're sleep deprived, our emotions are running on fumes and we're way more prone to overreacting or getting overwhelmed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know those mornings after a bad night's sleep, even the smallest things can feel like major life crises.
For sure.
Consistent sleep is definitely a game changer. Okay, this is a lot to unpack. Can we switch gears for a moment and talk about parents and caregivers?
Yeah,
They play such a vital role in supporting kids with ADHD,
absolutely.
especially when it comes to emotional regulation.
They're often on the front lines navigating these challenges right alongside their children.
Right.
And one of the most important things they can do is focus on positive reinforcement.
So instead of just pointing out what the child is doing wrong,
Right.
it's about celebrating their effort and successes, no matter how small.
Exactly. It's about catching them doing something right and acknowledging it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I noticed you stayed calm even though your little brother was being really annoying. That's awesome self-control.
Right.
Yeah.
That kind of positive reinforcement can work wonders for a child's self-esteem and motivation.
Oh, yeah.
It's about building those emotional muscles, right?
It really is. And just like we talked about routines being really helpful for adults with ADHD,
Right.
they're even more important for kids.
It's about creating that sense of predictability and stability,
Yeah.
which can be super grounding for a child who's feeling emotionally all over the place.
Exactly. Having those consistent routines for meals, homework, bedtime,
Yeah.
it helps minimize meltdowns and power struggles.
Okay, routines check.
Yeah.
What else can parents and caregivers do to support their kids? Communication must be key, right?
It's essential. And it goes beyond just talking at your child about their emotions.
Right.
It's about creating that safe space for them to open up and really feel heard.
So less lecturing, more listening.
Exactly. Active listening is crucial.
Okay.
Making eye contact, putting away distractions, reflecting back what they're saying, even if it doesn't make sense at first.
Yeah.
Showing them that their emotions matter and that they're not alone.
That validation is so powerful, especially for a child who might be feeling like their emotions are wrong or too big to handle.
Right.
It's about teaching them that all feelings are okay,
Yeah.
even the messy ones.
Exactly. And one way to do that is by asking those open-ended questions. Instead of saying, don't be sad.
Right.
Try something like, what are you feeling sad about? Or what happened that made you feel that way?
It's about helping them develop their emotional vocabulary, right? Giving them the words to express those big feelings swirling around inside. We've covered so much ground here.
We have.
But what about those times when it feels like nothing is working?
Right.
Like you're just stuck at the bottom of that mountain. What happens when those emotional challenges feel too big to handle alone? So to pick back up our mountain climbing analogy,
Right.
What happens when those emotional challenges feel too big to handle alone? When it feels like you need a guide to help you navigate the terrain?
Well, that's when knowing when to seek professional help becomes crucial.
Okay.
And it's not a sign of weakness.
Right.
It's a sign of strength and a commitment to well-being.
I like that.
Just like you might consult a doctor for a physical health issue, seeking support for your emotional health is just as important.
Yeah, and I think that can be a really powerful message,
Yeah.
especially for those who might be struggling in silence, feeling like they should just be able to tough it out on their own.
Right.
What are some signs that it might be time to reach out for professional guidance?
So if you're noticing uh, persistent emotional challenges like mood swings that feel really intense or frequent overwhelming anger or sadness that just won't quit, or if those emotions are starting to impact your daily life,
Okay.
your work, your relationships, your ability to just function, those are all big red flags.
So basically, if it's starting to affect your quality of life in a significant way,
Yeah.
it's worth exploring professional support.
Yeah.
What kind of support are we talking about here? What are some options for folks who are ready to take that step?
We talked about CBT, which can be incredibly helpful for addressing those negative thought patterns and developing those healthier coping mechanisms.
Right.
Group therapy can also be a great option.
Yeah, I bet there's something really powerful about connecting with others who truly get it,
Yeah.
who understand those unique challenges that come with ADHD and emotional dysregulation.
It's like finding your tribe,
Yeah.
your people who understand what it's like to live with that constant internal whirlwind.
Right.
And for some individuals, medication can also be a helpful tool in managing ADHD symptoms, including those related to emotional regulation.
It's important to remember that medication is often most effective when combined with therapy and lifestyle changes. It's not a magic bullet, but rather another tool in the toolkit, right?
Exactly. It's about finding the right combination of strategies that work for you, that help you feel more in control of your emotions and your life.
This deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening.
It has.
We've explored the science behind ADHD and emotional dysregulation, debunked some common myths, and unpacked a toolkit full of practical strategies.
We did.
And most importantly, I hope we've conveyed a sense of hope and empowerment.
For sure.
You are not alone in this journey. So as we wrap up, we want to leave you with this question. Knowing what you know now, what's one small step you can take today to better understand and manage your own emotional landscape or support someone else's? Maybe it's trying that quick breathing exercise we talked about.
Right.
Or looking for a therapist in your area. Or even just acknowledging to yourself, hey, this is hard and it's okay to ask for help.
Whatever that step may be,
Yeah.
no matter how small, it's a step in the right direction.
Beautifully said. And on that note of hope and possibility, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep embracing the incredible power of the human experience.